It's only.
I feel like they.
Why you have to be mad?
Sorry, what was that?
Is he in Nashville? Am I close geographically?
They've
The
been cooking it
contracts.
up.
The contracts are coming in.
No one knows what he is. He's a big orange monster
What's
with
he?
googly eyes.
He's
and
a gritty.
Okay.
little.
The Florida League.
What do you think of Owen's bracket? Do you remember it?
It's hopeful.
Welcome, episode 28 of the Bread Loves Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Dean and Brad and Gifford. We're in Studio A today. Well, one of us is, the other one's in Studio B, and the third one's in Studio C.
It's my new lighting.
Yeah, we hadn't noticed until Dean was messing around with his webcam. Like, this is for the video watchers. And the thumbnails have it too. There's been a lamp in the back of Dean's set, which has been just causing a bright white circle to be on pretty much all the thumbnails and in the background of like most of the shots, unless Dean's head was covering it. So things have been adjusted. Apparently, it's
I'm gonna have to
actually
move
a
that
bit
every
darker.
single time.
Yeah, yeah. Unless you, well,
I'll
it
figure
sound
out.
it sounds like this setup is actually darker than how it appears on camera for Dean. So that's why he had it where it was. But squared away for the time being. Maybe a more permanent solution forthcoming.
I was gonna say I think your video is a little bit more crisp. Like I think it's better than normal. So maybe that's a win to get rid of that light.
Makes for
Next step,
better
I'll get like a
thumbnails.
ring light for my webcam.
Yeah, there you go. My lighting is like okay in here. I have actually other lamps. I could probably put one in the corner if I wanted
You have
to.
overhead lighting, right?
Yeah, it's like right above me, right there. So you can kind of see it. But anywho, enough about the lighting. How about we got actually a lot of hockey news. We just missed the All-Star situation last episode, so we're able to talk on it now. We're recording on Monday the 5th today. So just wrapped up the All-Star bye week, and we're back into regularly scheduled programming as far as hockey is concerned.
What do you guys all think about the All-Star festivities?
Let's start with the draft, because I think
Go day by day.
yeah. So that was Thursday, and that was on. It wasn't even on ESPN Plus. It was on like ESPN2, I think some other random services, at least for the U.S. So
I think it was on ESPN Plus as well.
was it? I didn't think it
so.
was available on ESPN Plus. I thought it was only.
When I got home, I
ESPN.
caught the end of it, but I think I watched it on ESPN Plus.
Well, maybe I missed it that way anyways, but it was not great. I think like just the overall experience for the draft as a viewer was not exactly what I was hoping for. Especially based off of watching previous All-Star drafts that they had done. Like the format that they picked was very clinical, I guess. Like it was a little bit too like regimented in a weird way, and the players weren't really cooperating, I guess. Not like that they were doing it intentionally, but just
They were very confused.
yeah,
They were just kind of there socializing and like having a good time. Like, oh, I gotta pick someone, and like I want to pick a goalie, like, or I want to pick a forward. Like, you can't pick a forward, you have to pick a goalie this round. And like, oh, okay. Like,
yeah, they didn't really, they weren't really keeping track of what they needed to do. There was only one defenseman per each team at the end of it, so it was like also a little weird. Yeah, they didn't remember to have a certain. I think they had to have two goalies drafted by the 10th round or by the 6th round or whatever it was. So it was a little strange there, and the way that they had the audio routed was just a little like I think we talked about in the group chat how miking up like each player had their own headset with a microphone, and so they were basically picking and choosing when to activate certain players and certain celebrities' mics. So it was just kind of disorganized.
Yeah, they did a poor job. I think when it came to the concept was good. I always like a fantasy style draft, but the mics, like you said, I think there should have just been a podium that each of the four teams had, and then that mic is just turned on and off when they're making their pick. But you're having a discussion, or the hosts are having a discussion with one team, and you're hearing another team deliberate on who they're going to pick in the background. And it's like, I don't know why they don't have them muted in the process. And
which they started, I feel like they started figuring out like about halfway through, like they started getting it together a little bit more, but it was still a little touch and go.
I think in theory,
having
like
everyone
mic'd up was a good idea. Like in theory, it seemed like that would be what you wanted. Like I feel like as the group discussion, I wonder what they're talking about, but it's just the execution of like you said, them talking over each other. When one team was picking, you heard that other people talking, and it's just I think it was more of a production issue in the way they went about it rather than like the overall idea.
Yep, and then like the hosts were trying to fill airtime when someone was making a selection. So then they're asking them questions, but sometimes they're asking the team a question who needs to make the pick.
Yeah.
And it's like, they need to make the pick. Let them make the pick, talk to somebody else. It just felt like there was not that they need to rehearse that, but it feels like, nobody really knew what was going on. And it seemed like that was like the first time that they were like essentially rehearsed, like there was no rehearsal, and therefore it seemed a little disjointed.
Yeah.
Not everyone knew what was going on.
Yeah, I mean, like not like interviewing the team that hasn't decided who they're gonna pick was like, definitely annoying. Like just leave them alone so they can talk amongst themselves on who they want to pick, because they're kind of like McDavid's like oh gee, I don't know. I think we know who we're gonna go with. What do you think, Leon? And then Leon's like, yeah, I think I don't know, Will. What do you want to do? And Will's like, I think we just gotta trust the hockey guys. Yeah. And it's like, okay, well and then Leon just like says somebody, and then it's like, okay, there was no group decision, but whatever, because like you're talking to us now, we know we just gotta say a name so we can move on. Like, they just weren't approaching it the right way.
And then the other piece that was a miss for me, especially when we had a couple of teams that had a lot of players that were all-stars, with the Canucks, what they had, did the Canucks have 4 or 5? Or Canucks had 6, and it was the Leafs that had 5?
6 with Lindholm, and 4 for the Leafs.
Oh, 4, okay. But so it's like you have Matthews' team is just selecting all Leafs, and you have the Hughes team is just selecting all Canucks. And like the point of the All-Star weekend is that we're supposed to be able to see like essentially your fantasy team come true, where you're seeing all these players from different places playing together. And I feel like that was kind of a miss in that it's kind of was just the Vancouver Canucks versus the Toronto Maple Leafs versus 2 fantasy teams. And it's like maybe they should have just said, hey, you can only take one. Like, I don't know how they could make a go around that, but I just feel like, certain players are always going to play or want to play with their teammates. And then it feels weird if you don't pick your teammate, right? Like, so I don't know what the best format is, but it just felt off that it's just like you're seeing multiple teams just form that are already teams to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of on the players too. Like they had like pacts beforehand. Like if you don't take this player, I won't take this player, and that sort of thing.
Yep.
I mean, I get having 4 Maple Leafs because you're in Toronto and you like, obviously it's for that fan base. But I feel like obviously the 6th Canuck was because of a trade, but having 5 Canucks, even though they're playing amazing this year, seems a bit much. Like I also don't feel like you need to pick one player from every team. Like if a team sucks, don't have an all-star. But I feel like when they did the draft years ago, it seemed like people still pick their teammates because they're gonna do that. But like there weren't 5 or 6 on one team, so that you didn't have a whole stack of like half your team being one, like from one franchise.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can't really control what if the players want to play with their friends and they're available, like, yeah, they're gonna do that. So, I don't think that's that big a deal, but I do think, yeah, it was a little exacerbated by the amount of Canucks that were just present. Like, did JT Miller really have to be there over like Jonathan Marchessault? Obviously Vegas fan, they weren't there, except for Chance, he was there. But no Vegas players represented was kind of, even though it's kind of like for nothing, it's like it's still a little annoying, when there were plenty of good candidates that were healthy and have been playing really well for a team that's still been doing really well this year. Like, I don't know. So that I think that probably could have helped a bit, but I've already.
Yeah,
I guess I
you're
didn't
losing,
pay
like,
attention.
the whole the team that just won the Stanley Cup probably has a decent fan base that's probably not watching the All-Star weekend now because they don't have a player to watch. So they're like, eh.
Yeah.
How many other teams other than Vegas didn't have a player?
Just Chicago.
Kind of,
Chicago.
technically.
Well,
Bedard was
and
there.
Yeah,
and Calgary.
Bedard was making passes.
Yeah.
On
Yeah, he
what was
talked.
that?
But yeah, there were no Calgary players there of any kind. Well, I guess Lanny McDonald was there. Yeah, he had like a health scare, I saw, on the way back from the game at the Calgary airport. So, all the best to him, but not what I was really trying to bring up. Just figured I'd throw it in there. So what were you saying, Gifford?
No, I was just saying Lou Lindholm was a Flame, but not anymore.
Not
He's
anymore,
just one more Connect.
Yeah. Well, we'll go through the trade. Actually, there's a couple of trades that we haven't covered yet, but let's wrap up the All-Star discussion first. Anything else with the draft?
The other thing about the draft is when we were watching it, Brennan was like, Michael Bublé's on drugs, and then he was. So shout out to you for calling that.
Dude, I was like, what is this guy on? Like, he's literally babbling. Like, what do they say? What's the word? They say yapping now. Like, he's just yapping up there about nothing, and I'm like, dude, I said cocaine because I was like, I have no idea, and it was partially just like to throw out a funny drug out there. Like, I didn't really know anything, but
And then drug aficionado.
yeah, me. But then they were like, yeah, he said in the frickin' press conference, he's like, my buddy said this was like a microdose of shrooms, but I don't believe him, ha ha ha. And it's like, oh my god, like, I freaking knew it. He was on drugs. Like, and then of course, like, he had the little thing with Steve Dangle afterward, like, after that conference where he was like, no, it was just a joke, whatever. But it's like, no, it wasn't. Like, you would much prefer that it was you being on drugs, because if it wasn't you being on drugs, like, I don't know what you were saying up there, man, but it wasn't getting through. To me, anyways. I don't know. Maybe you have to be on shrooms in order to get it.
And that's why I thought it was just cringy, because Cam Talbot was already the last of the 8 goalies to be selected, and then he doesn't even select Cam Talbot. He tries to get JT Miller, and they're like, no, you have to take the goalie. You have to take the goalie. And then it's like Cam Talbot's like probably sitting there the whole time, like, yes, I know it's me, but like he doesn't even want even want me, and he has to take me.
That was like his one lucid moment. He's like, well, we have 2 picks in a row. It doesn't matter what order I pick them in. I could pick the goalie second.
He did say that. That's true.
Technically,
That's true.
He did say that. Yeah.
They're back to back, but yeah, that's what they said. And then for the last 4 picks, they didn't make them choose. They didn't want anybody to be last, so they just made it like random. Like, oh, here's your envelopes. This says what team you're on. It's like, open them up, and then I don't know. I think it was just kind of like you really don't want like a player to get butt hurt so bad by being picked last that you're gonna make it completely random and not skill based like at all.
They don't want a Phil Kessel moment.
Yeah,
That was the best part. Well,
I
It's
know.
the,
Like
it's the joke that
take
Sean
the line came
McAdoo
out.
always makes, where like hockey players are the toughest players, the warriors. Like they play through all these injuries, but like, oh, if we hurt their feelings,
Yeah,
like,
I know.
we
I
could
know.
never do that.
That's ridiculous.
Like it's not like we're saying you're the worst player in the league. We're saying you're just the best, or you're the worst of the best. So it's
Or
like
the
you're still
least
very
wanted
good. You're like
all-star. You might not
above
even be the worst.
average. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
just the one that nobody wanted to pick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the Phil Kessel
Which,
moment
like
was, one of the best
under other
ones.
circumstances, probably is a goalie, right? Like, is that also why they've made that rule, where it's like, oh, we're gonna just randomly in this round make you take your second goalie,
Probably
and
just
then
so
it's
they
not
wouldn't
the
forget
goalies
them.
that are left last.
Yeah, probably just so they wouldn't forget him. But Hellebuck went in the first round, which I think was a bit of a surprise to some of us.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think they would do goalies at least for a few rounds, but Will Arnett's team wanted him, so he
Yep.
got him.
But yeah, I mean, I think overall the draft was entertaining. Like, I don't know. Would you want another, like, them to keep doing the draft, or do you say scrap it?
I'd like them to try again, I think, but do it better. I think it deserves another look because the concept I think is good and I think it's executed or been executed well in the past. So I'm open to them trying again.
Agreed.
So we move on to Saturday skills competition. Oh, sorry.
Friday.
PWHL showcase. After the draft, a couple hours later, and that definitely was on ESPN Plus. So I watched that Team King versus Team Kloss. It was actually really entertaining. There were some pretty nasty goals, some pretty nasty saves too. Savannah Harmon, former Clarkson Golden Knight, gets the natural hat trick. And Ella Shelton opened up the scoring, who also opened up the scoring for the league.
Cool.
Also former Golden Knight, so that was pretty cool. And Team King ends up winning 6-4, I believe. So that was pretty fun. Did either of you guys check that out?
I did not.
I was able to see it. I saw the beginning of it live, and then I went back, and that's the good thing about ESPN Plus is you can go back and watch stuff later that day. So I watched a little bit more of it. I think it's good. Like we've been saying, just trying to get more exposure to the league. This is yet another way to do that. And I liked that it was like right after, or like soon after, one of the NHL All-Star components. So it's not like it's left to a separate day where it's almost forgotten about. It's the fact that it's like right after the All-Star draft, we're going to have this, so that everyone's still in the arena for it, and then again it gets its time to shine. But I think it was good, and then hopefully they continue strong and maybe even find more ways to mix the two leagues together during the All-Star week.
It was good that it was right after, but they didn't mention it once on the broadcast during
Yeah.
the
Oh,
draft.
that is true. That is true.
We did make a note of that. I was like, dude, really? Like they didn't even like when they were signing off, they really didn't even mention like, and stay tuned like later or at I think it was like 2 hours later, or maybe an hour, that the 3-on-3 PWHL showcase. Like obviously the fans in the arena knew, or I assume that they knew, but like yeah, if you were on TV and you didn't see it on social media, you weren't probably staying because you didn't know about it. So that was a misstep. I don't know if that really affected viewership or what. We'll never really know, but that was a bummer. So now we move on to Saturday skills competition. Friday skills competition. Thank you, Dean. There was no Sunday.
Moved
this
everything
time.
this year by a day.
Yeah,
To be
they
fair.
moved everything. which I knew and I just blocked it out or whatever. Friday, skills competition. I think it was in the middle of the day. Like it was like 3. I think it started, or no,
I think it started
5.
at 7 Eastern.
Yeah, was it? Maybe I'm thinking.
Because
Oh,
yeah, I got home because it was a Friday, so I got home from work.
oh, I'm thinking of Saturday, the All-Star
Still
game.
Friday.
No, but this time I am thinking of Friday. I'm just thinking of the dates were mixed up. Anyways,
Well, anyway, 7 Eastern, I believe.
doesn't really matter when it started. Um, so we already knew who the players were. It had nothing to do with the draft, which Owen seemed to forget the whole time we were watching it. But there were 12 players, and I think the first competition was the fastest skater.
Order doesn't matter either.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So I'm not gonna break down the whole thing because honestly I don't remember all of it. But
Give us your
McDavid
overall thoughts.
McDavid ends up winning. Can't say any of us were really too surprised. But I thought it was overall pretty fun. Usually what I'm looking forward to anyways when it comes to All-Star stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the issue in the past was they didn't really try, and I know McDavid had worked with the league and come up with better ways to get the players to be more engaged, and $1 million to the winner definitely helps. So I think
Help McDavid.
this year, for for the most part, players were trying harder, except for Kucherov, which we can get to. But yeah, I think there was actually competition. Players wanted to win, and I mean, it was also good that players like they didn't have to do all the skills, right? They had their own. I forget if they each did 4 or whatever, but
They got to pick
and
4 out of the 6.
yeah, and then if you didn't make it, you got cut. So like at the end, it was like all the players that like were really trying to win it for the final competitions, which also was nice because like they seemed to get a little more complicated. Like the passing challenge, it seemed like the players didn't really know what to do.
Oh God,
Similar going
no.
back to like the draft, where it's like Gifford said it didn't look like they practiced or had like a rehearsal. Same with like some of the skills competitions where like the players did not know what to do.
Yeah. Which
Yeah,
I think.
overall, I think it was. I mean, it was good. It's better than years past. But yeah, I think they're heading in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that one-on-one thing that they did, or not, it wasn't called that. It was because this year it was one-on-one. There was something that they did either in the Florida All-Star game or in the Vegas All-Star game or skills
The
competition.
shootout one where they wear like costumes and stuff.
Yeah, the weird shootout where like I feel like none of the players really knew like what was going on. There was like multiple goalies involved in like a weird tandem, but not all the goalies.
Oh, I was talking about the one where like you like put on a show, but you're talking about the one where it's like the goalies. Or actually no, that was just the goalie one. It was like the goalies behind the net and they were like shooting pucks and stuff. But
Yeah,
there were a
maybe
couple weird ones.
yeah, that maybe it was that one, and I'm mixing it with something else. But I feel like they've definitely had a history, at least as of late, of creating these different events that they haven't done before, which are confusing to some of the players, and they don't really break it down enough, like beforehand, really cement the rules and everything. So it ends up with some interesting either accidental rule breaks or just miscommunication and stuff. So it's kind of it is what it is. They don't have that much time with these guys. I'm sure they got media as soon as they get there, and then all the
Just
festivities.
show the players the little bubble hockey instructions that we saw. Like this is what you're gonna do.
Yeah. Show them the presentations that they made for us on TV.
Yeah.
If you do this, you're out. It's like
Those are like falling over.
Yeah, they were pretty good. And then here's the Zamboni pushing the $1 million. Sorry, ice resurfacing machine. It may not have been a Zamboni. It's a brand name.
No, I think it would. I think it'd be good if they just like I liked that. Now that you mention it, like the shootout that they did in Vegas. What was that last year? I mean, I know
2
like
years
the
ago.
scoring was goofy. Yeah, because it was just the like celebrities favoriting, like for example, was it like John Hamm just like
Oh
gave
yeah,
Alex Petrangelo like a perfect score, and it's like, okay, you're just doing it because he's from Vegas.
yeah, that was terrible.
Um, but the concept of like letting these guys show their like raw talent, so like Zegras blindfolded doing his shootout goal, things like that. I feel like if they can find more ways to like just let these guys be creative and like show their talents versus these skills competitions that I feel like you don't necessarily get to see them shine, depending on what it is. Like I feel like fastest skater, so like seeing how fast some of these guys can actually get up to speed from a stop is pretty impressive. But just like being able to see what they're capable of, I think that's something that the league should try to develop or improve on.
I feel like it's hard to like incentivize on the creative challenges though. Like if you're sticking with like this like $1 million thing, I mean, I guess you could still do like the creative shootout one, but then you'd actually have to have like unbiased judges and like actually rate
Yeah.
it that way. But like at least for this year, it made sense to do like black and white. Like you're the fastest skater based off this timer. You get 5 points for first place, 3 points for second, or whatever the scoring system was. I
Yeah.
think we've learned in the past too that like with NHL players are not always the most creative anyway, so trying to like lean into that could be tough. But I do like like I said, like those older shootout ones, the like classic like Patrick Kane Superman one, and some of those were always super cool as a kid. So I mean, there's definitely a balance
Yeah, I
I've
mean it's
found around
similar to like the
how to do it.
yeah, it's similar to like the dunk competition for like the NBA. It's
Yeah,
like trying to find new ways to like, am I gonna jump over a car? Am I jumping over like Shaq? Am I like a windmill dunk? Like just finding creative ways. So it's like Michigan goals. It's like maybe you could even have like 2-on-1 or like 3-on-1 scenarios where it's like these guys are just finding creative ways to pass the puck to each other. Like I feel like there's ways that you could do that just add to the creativity, and maybe they give you some like highlight reel goals, which again just hopefully increases the awareness and fan base for the sport in general. Like think about like even like a goalie, like they could do some kind of a goalie challenge where it's like a goalie starts on one side of the net and it's like somebody's just taking shots and like the goalie's just got to try to dive and save them. Like and maybe there's ways that these guys could get hurt in the process, so maybe it's not worth the risk.
Maybe with that
But
one, yeah.
like it would be pretty cool if they could do like like what was the most impressive save, and it's just like any highlight reel goal or save that you see in a game, like trying to replicate something like that in the All-Star weekend.
yeah.
How come they haven't done yet where the goalies dress as skaters and the skaters dress as goalies and they do a shootout?
That would be good.
The skaters could get hurt playing goalie.
You're probably right because they're not used to going into the butterfly or anything.
Well, they could have goalies as skaters. There's nothing against that.
Yeah, they could. They
Like
could
3-on-3
still do that.
goalie challenge. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, like just a strict goalie doing like the stick handling and the shooting the four corners and stuff, and just like goalie on goalie and see which one has the best shooting accuracy and stuff.
Yeah. Or you could still have them do a shootout and it's just two goalies against each other and it's just like, let's just see if you, because part of being a goalie is knowing where players are going to shoot. So it's like, it's a little different, obviously, because these guys, but it would also just be so fascinating to see the goalies like, not wearing their big shells like we always see them. It's just always so like unnatural. Like you see Hellebuck standing and he's just like a regular man. Like, he's not like covered in all this gear and stuff.
When we were watching the skills competition, Swayman was sitting there with like glasses on and like no pads. And like, who's that random dude? I'm like, that's Swayman.
Like I was like, oh my god, why are there just like two guys just like sitting there? Like, who are these guys? What are you doing? And yeah, Dean's like, I think that guy in the glasses is Swayman. I'm like, Swayman? Yeah. Like I don't normally see him in glasses, but it's also like this. Yeah. It just looks like some guy. Like it's not a goalie, It's
What do you
crazy.
guys think of Kucherov's performance?
lackluster.
I heard people saying he doesn't deserve heart votes now because of it.
That's
Wow.
no.
That's a little
Sorry.
harsh.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous. I mean,
That was most people's reaction. Yeah.
like, come on. It's completely irrelevant to his performance in the regular season.
Right.
Yeah,
It's also
I
just
think
kinda
it
like,
wasn't that fun, to see him do that, but it shouldn't
he
really
just like
matter.
started off bad and was like, whatever, I'm just gonna like screw around for the rest of it. But it's also kind of just like how Kucherov is. Like he's so sneaky in the offensive zone because he can like act as a non-threat, and then just like all of a sudden just be open for a one-timer or like slap pass it to like point or something. So it's like it's almost like he was showcasing part of his game in a way.
That's an
But,
interesting take.
yeah. I think who was that? Jeff Merrick was saying something along those lines. I'm like, yeah, it's interesting. Not that it's like excusing it or anything, but like it's almost like how he plays in a way. Like he's like the best magician in the league currently.
Yeah, and even with the season he's been having, like he hasn't been at the top of like, discussions as far as like player performances this year. I don't think, like he's just been quietly having like a really strong year, for a Tampa team that's like okay, like they're not blowing people out of the water. Or at least they weren't, for a little while. Obviously they started without Vasilevsky, but, yeah, I feel like he hasn't been talked about as much as like Reinhardt and Matthews and a couple of these other guys that are putting up a lot of goals or a lot of points. But yeah, I don't know if you have any other thoughts, Gifford, on Kucherov's overall performance at the skills competition.
Nothing else I can think of.
So I think that's it for Saturday. It's Friday then. Friday, and we move on to the games. So, Team McDavid versus Team McKinnon was first game, and it was I actually watched all of the games, which I didn't think I was going to do, but I was like, yeah, sure, I'll like check them out, and they were actually like at least the first two sets were actually pretty good. Both of the games ended up going to shootouts, which there was no overtime for them because it's already 3-on-3 for 20 minutes. So they ended them both in shootouts. Pasta gets the shootout winner for Team McDavid, and I don't remember who won it for Team Matthews. Maybe it was that Reinhardt, or I know Boone Jenner had a couple of big goals, but he played for McDavid's team, so that wasn't it. Although I think he did score in the shootout, but he didn't score the winner. Either way,
it doesn't say.
Oh, really?
No, it just says
5-5. Wait,
yeah, it says 5-5, and then it doesn't tell
That's
you.
they're
annoying.
both 5-5. The last two goals. So DeBrincat probably.
Oh, yeah, that might be it. Because he was on Team Matthews, so.
They said 5-5 and then 5-5 again.
That's annoying. I think I've seen them do that before. So yeah, it was home favorite Team Matthews versus Team McDavid, and Team Matthews ends up taking it. They pulled away in the third period, and they split the $1 million. So, little feel good story, I guess, for the home crowd with all their Maple Leafs on the same team.
I heard there was
Sounds
some
rigged to me.
mild complaining about the how rough Team Matthews was playing in the last game. There was like one specific face-off play that like one of them did like a move that's like not like a tie-up, but like I don't know, like something physical, and then there were, like people complaining.
It's like, what are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was sort of looking to see if like anybody was gonna do something a little outside of the the realm of the All-Star game spirit, and I didn't really catch much of anything. Like nobody was going for checks or pushing hard on the forecheck if they were gonna get too close or hurt somebody. So
I mean, Matthews was
more
taking some
subtle.
pretty hard shots at the end. Like there was like one of his one-timers Like in the first few, like I think the first games were a lot like more laid back, and then in
Yeah.
the finals they kind of picked it up.
There were a couple shot blocks. I saw one. I was like, "Oh wow,
Yeah,
your coach
imagine
is
getting
gonna
like
be
breaking a leg
pissed."
in an All-Star game.
Yeah. Jim Montgomery was pretty fired up for his team Matthews win. He was pretty animated on the bench there, um, with Bieber and with I think that was his son, or maybe that was somebody else. I don't know. I thought it was Jim Montgomery's son.
Does Monty get any money?
Yeah, I doubt it. I think they just split it with the players, but I don't know.
I mean, maybe, what if he did such a good job coaching? Maybe that was the difference
He was-
maker.
Yeah,
He
does
was doing
Justin
it for the
Bieber
love of the game.
Does Justin Bieber get a cut too, since he was a
Yeah.
co-captain? I don't know.
Heard Bieber sang for the first time in 2 years at the All-Star weekend.
Did he really? I didn't
I
catch
did
that.
see that.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like Tate McRae like really was like her like rehearsal, like she like was really wanted to like nail her performance, and like the people watching the rehearsal that like see these all the time because they work there were like, yeah, she was like killing it. Like
She
her
was
her
great.
performance was really good. Yeah.
She did a great job, I thought.
I didn't realize she's only 20.
Is she really? That's crazy. I didn't know she was that young. Yeah, I think she's from Alberta, so she was sad to not have her. Well, she's from the Calgary general area, I think. So sad that Lindholm got traded and that they didn't have any representatives, and then they didn't even get Lindholm either from the All-Star draft. So that was a bummer for her, I'm sure. But performance was great. Seemed like she really enjoyed being there. She's like an actual NHL fan, which is like super good for the league that they were able to make that work. You know, get people that are following her and interested in the league like together. Just make notice
like
of what the All-Star game is about.
Celebrities like actually wanted to be there this year.
Yeah, Will Arnett was definitely enthusiastic. He was, he's a Leafs fan, and he said he met Wendell Clark and was like really excited about that. So it's like, yeah, okay, that's not like somebody from today's Maple Leafs. So it's not like he's like a recent fan. Like he's probably been a lifelong Maple Leafs fan.
Mm-hmm.
So good for those like celebrity super fans, pretty much. Bublé's
It's the Taylor
a
Swift
big one.
effect.
Yeah. They're spreading.
Essentially, it's just like leagues try to find big celebrities and then hopefully they give exposure. I mean, they say that like Taylor Swift for the NFL has made $300 and some odd million. So if the NHL can do the same thing, find some people, and I feel like they have. So if these celebrities stick with it, I feel like that's always good for the game.
You guys see that for the Super Bowl, there's a category of prop bets called For the Swifties.
No.
No.
Yeah, they're all like, well, it's not like Taylor Swift specific necessarily. It's like, will so and so, or like, will a team get like exactly 22 points, or like it's all like a play on like her lead and stuff.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I did not see it, but the Super Bowl brings up so many really obscure prop bets, and people
There's
just
a scoregami this year. You can bet on there'll be a scoregami.
I would not bet on that, but that
or
would be
do you know
pretty
what an
crazy.
octopus is?
I think I've heard the term, but refresh the viewers' memories.
Yes, of course. It's where a player gets a touchdown, and then that same player gets the 2-point conversion.
Ah, yes, I have heard of that. I think they've heard them mention that on Red Zone before.
I remember a few years ago, DraftKings had like, will there be an octopus in the Super Bowl? And then during the game, they like showed an octopus like on the camera or something, and then all these people that bet it were like mad because like there's an octopus, and they're like sending pictures, and then now DraftKings is like, will it be like a football octopus? And they can't specify it.
I assume that they didn't end up having to pay out those people because that's not really the spirit of it. But
maybe they refunded them. I don't know.
Maybe just to prevent any like potential backlash, although I really doubt it. It's like you really have to know what that is. Like, you can't just bet like all willy-nilly like that and think you can get away with it.
Yeah.
But that's funny. So I don't bet, so I won't be partaking in any obscure prop bets or anything more normal either. I know Gifford's a bit of a gambler.
Occasionally. I mean, I'm already seeing people talking on Twitter about what color is the Gatorade. You know,
Classic.
is it going to be a heads or tails wins the coin toss? Because I think the coin toss, like in the last 10 years, whoever guessed the coin toss was wrong 9 out of like the last 10 times. It was just last year that curse was broken. That they had the correct coin flip guess.
Over under on the
we'll see. There's
Anthem
always-
link.
Yeah,
Is a
I was
good
thinking
one,
that
too.
one.
Yep, that's a good one. There's a lot of fun ones.
Dope.
But yeah, scoregami, I would stay away from that. Not for a Super Bowl. Super Bowls usually are really boring scores, and you're unlikely to see some crazy like safety or something like that could give the scoregami a really good chance.
Save that for week 1 weirdness. Wow,
Exactly.
as our buddy Trevor likes to call it. Yeah, I'd like to review how many scoregamis we got this season after it's all said and done. I think it's probably like 5 or 6 maybe at the most.
Yeah, it seemed like we did pretty good this year.
Not great odds. But yeah, there were some good weeks. I think there were a couple weeks where we had 2 or maybe 1 at least. I don't know if you can easily review it on their website, but you could check their Twitter account. It'd just be difficult because there's a lot of tweets that say the word scoregami in them. I guess you could.
I think my friend was saying that
scoregami
was actually a scoregami like in the Super Bowl like, a few years ago.
I can't remember if I feel like maybe there was one in the playoffs or something, but I don't know if it was in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. It's just what I've been told. But let me see if I find the scoregami one.
So that pretty much wraps up All-Star Weekend. Overall,
Just to do a
it was fun.
quick fact checking, the scoregami has never occurred in. It looks like never occurred in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to find the odds for it because it's got to be good odds, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
good odds.
definitely.
It's saying the odds are like based on that percentage. Every 100 Super Bowls, a scoregami will appear. So, 1 out of every 100.
There's only been 57 Super Bowls.
Yes,
There
is
you
only
go.
plus 2,000.
I feel
Which,
like
I
those
mean-
odds need to be boosted.
I'm not
more.
taking that. I mean,
No
yeah.
is minus 10,000.
Yeah. Yeah, that doesn't seem very good.
I mean, bet $1, get
Oh,
20
wait.
bucks.
Maybe I'm wrong. It says now I'm seeing a different site that says it's happened 3 times.
Oh, hold on,
Which those are
folks.
much better odds. Those are much better odds.
We'll get you the truth in a moment.
We got Giants Broncos was 39-20, which I mean I guess the 39 is a little bit weird. We have 49ers Broncos was 55-10, and then we had Seahawks Broncos, which Broncos are literally in all 3. 43-8, which I mean that was a crazy game.
January 25th,
So one-sided.
1987.
So DraftKings says that the scoregami hit 9 times this season.
9
So
times.
that's about 1.65% of the time. Based on that percentage, every 100 Super Bowls, a scoregami will appear.
I think that's what Gifford
I mean,
was
now that I
saying.
look back at the
Interesting.
a lot of the games recently, it's like we actually do get some high scoring games. 51 was 34-28, 52 was 41-33, 54 was 31-20, 55 31-9, and then last year's Super Bowl was 38-35. So we're hitting the 30s consistently. So it's like if you can get at least one of those over that 30 point threshold, I feel like your chances go way up. Because a lot of
I think
40s,
there has-
50s haven't been hit, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely advantageous to get as many points on the board for both teams as possible. I mean, obviously there are some that are scattered in the beginning, but obviously those scores
6-1.
are the ones. Those ones are very difficult to get. Obviously, it never happened. But yeah, you want to be in like the 50s and 60s to like definitely have a chance at least for one of the teams. Or not definitely, but give yourself a pretty good chance.
All 3 scoregamis in the Super Bowl have been with the Broncos. With the
Yeah.
Broncos losing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's tough.
They
That's
almost
a
had a
very
scoregami this
strange
year.
Broncos stat.
Yeah.
There was that 54-51 game that happened a few years back, Rams versus Chiefs. That one was a crazy one, 2018. That one always sticks out in my head. I remember watching that one live.
But
and
the
I was like,
Broncos aren't in the Super Bowl this year, so can't bet on the
Oh,
scoregami.
yeah.
You got to
No
wait for them to
scoregami.
come back in.
no chance of scoregami. They have to be there.
100% of the time that there's been a scoregami, the Broncos have been in. Therefore, you need them to be in again in order to bet on them.
The odds would be different if the Broncos were in it.
Definitely.
We'll find out if-
I actually think.
We'll find out if
I
they ever
actually
get
think
back
it would
there.
sway the odds.
Yeah. No, because based off people's betting, like they change the odds based off demand. So you think people would be betting more for yes if they actually did their research.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think it really would sway the lines. All right, should we go back to hockey?
Yeah. We should have been back there probably a little while ago, but it's fine. Speaking of hockey, Gifford went on a hockey trip very recently, which we haven't had a chance to discuss with him yet.
Yep. What was that? That was 2 weeks now. Got to see 2 games for the Golden Knights. First night, we were in Newark for the Devils Golden Knights, and then the next night we traveled to the island to see the Islanders play in Patrick Waugh's second game as head coach of the Islanders. So it was really good. We got really nice seats for both games. We were lower bowl.
Yeah,
it wasn't
they're
like we
nice.
were 5 or 6 rows off of the ice, but we were still very close. Probably the best seats I've had for hockey so far were those 2 games. So it's always nice to get up close to see the action a little bit better than if you're in one of the upper decks. Results were, I guess, overall good because it was an overtime loss and a regulation win. So that was the first regulation win that I've had in the 6 games that I've gone to. The only other win I've
Crazy.
seen Vegas have was in a shootout. So I'm now 2-2-2. So still not great because that would be 2-4 overall, but we'll take the extra 2 loser points.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that we had in those 6 games, 3 of them were at least overtime. So for some reason, I like to see extra hockey, which I'm not going to complain about.
Yeah. Tough to be
but
upset about that. I mean, it hurts more when you lose in overtime. Usually, not always. Like,
Yep.
I mean, definitely in the playoffs it does, but in the regular season, at least you hold on to that loser point. Like that's the only solace you have.
Yeah, and that's why I was getting nervous because it was the Knights Devils game that went into overtime, but the Islanders game was 3-2, and I know how much those Islanders love to find their way into overtime. So I'm just praying that there isn't a goal, and especially like they pushed at the end. So, I don't know how people do it every single night. Like I feel like every single time I go, I'm always a little bit nervous, regardless. Like even if I bet you if I went to a game where Vegas wasn't involved, I probably wouldn't be as nervous because it's like, okay, it doesn't really matter.
Oh yeah.
But I feel like it's really nerve-wracking. So it's like I cannot imagine what it's like to watch your team in a playoff game, like Game 7 scenario, where it's like the season's on the line. It's like there's something about being live versus watching it on television that just adds those extra nerves.
How about that
But
for an
overall,
advertisement for the league, for getting people
Yeah,
to
there you
go to live games? It's different, man.
I mean,
It's different. You gotta go. If you haven't been, you gotta go. You gotta try.
yeah. What do you think? Do you disagree or agree with that?
It's definitely gonna be nervous sitting there in your seat watching them play especially when the stakes are that high. I have felt that way, the difference between going to Vegas games in person versus going to non-Vegas games. Like, I'm so much more relaxed at the non-Vegas games. Even if I'm, like, invested in the team I'm watching or whatever, like, it's still not nearly the same level. So, yeah, if you want to dip your feet into the water, I guess if you've never been, maybe try one that isn't for your favorite team if you have one. Depends on where you live and everything, how feasible that is. But
Or go to an AHL game, or a
Yeah.
PWHL game, or any live
Yep.
hockey, college hockey. It's all good.
it is all good. There's a lot of good teams out there, and maybe not all at the same levels. But yeah, I've been to 4 different levels of hockey. I guess 5 if you count that preseason Canada versus USA game that we went to. But yeah,
Best on best.
Yeah, best on best. Which was just recently announced that will be coming back officially in 2025. They're calling it the Four Nations Face-Off because there's only 4 teams like we had initially reported on. The Americans, Canadians, Finns, and Swedes will be competing in 2025, which means no All-Star game in 2025. So that whole stuff about trying things new, well, that'll have to be in 2 years because no All-Star festivities next year. But yeah, there'll be the tournament will be held. It's like a 9-day period. There's a round robin for seeding with 3-2-1 format, and then the top 2 seeded teams after the round robin compete in a one-on-one finale, and I don't know. I know they said that they have 2 different locations, Boston and Montreal, for the Four Nations Face-Off. I don't know where they're gonna play the finale. I don't know if that's been confirmed yet, but it's exciting. It's a little bit tough because it's only four nations, so you're really not getting that true best on best that you'd like with the Olympics, and even maybe with the Olympics if how they're feeling about the Russia-Ukraine situation in 2026 and subsequently 2030, depending on what goes on. But that's also confirmed at this time that NHL players will be allowed to go to the Olympics again. So lots of big international hockey news over the last week or so. Thoughts?
I mean, I'm excited to see Olympic hockey again. The Four Nations one will be cool, but it's a good start, I guess, to get back into best on best hockey. But I think what everyone's looking forward to is 2026 and 2030.
Yeah.
I'm curious what your thoughts are because I feel like this is I know what you're gonna say because you're in agreement with the Olympic hockey moving forward 26 and 30. But I'm just curious on your thoughts on when somebody says pros shouldn't be playing in the Olympics and that Olympics should be left for amateur players. If you think about a lot of the other Olympic sports, we don't have professionals playing in them. Now, sure, there's definitely exceptions to the rule when it comes to basketball, for example, like the NBA players play in the Olympics. But I'm just curious on your thoughts. I'm not one way or the other. Like, I don't know where I necessarily fall on this because I can see both sides. But I'm just curious on your thoughts on whether you think pros should or should not be playing in the Olympics and why.
I mean, as a viewer, selfishly, I want to see the best hockey players compete against each other. So
Yep.
I would say like NHL players, if obviously, well, you would assume they're the best, so they're going to make up most of the team. But I mean, there's still room for other surprises. Like there's great players in the KHL and other European leagues that are going to be playing alongside these NHL players. And I mean, I can't speak for them, but I feel like they wouldn't mind playing on a line with like these NHLers that I'm sure they've watched their games and maybe even seen like growing up, depending on some of these age gaps. Like there's 38-year-old Ovechkin or whatever, and some 20-year-old in the Olympics on the same team. Like I thought that'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement. Just makes sense to have the players, especially because they want to be there to represent like their nations too. Like a lot of it is like, yeah, I feel like I'm, the best representative for my sport and for my country. So just because I play professionally, I don't think should exclude me. Maybe that's an argument that could be made if pros were not allowed. But yeah, I think you should be wanting to see the best players there. So I'm all for that too. So we'll see what happens with that going forward, but we got a little bit of time now. Before that, we'll see how the Four Nations face-off goes, and how it's received after the fact. With I'm sure there's still going to be a lot of protest about certain nations being excluded that feel that they should deserve a spot, but I'm sure it was a tough decision. We'll quickly touch on a couple news items that we didn't completely get to last week. Well, one that we talked about, but we didn't have the full details, was the Fantilli injury. So we knew that he was hurt, and I had thought that I had heard that he was cut in the leg, and that turned out to be true. It was a calf laceration, which whenever you hear that word laceration, you're like never envious of the player. Like that's tough. So he's out 8 weeks. Another big blow for the Blue Jackets. And yeah, that's like one of the players that you're gonna want to come out to see as a player, or not player, a fan that lives in the Ohio area. Like, yeah, if I'm deciding whether or not to go and maybe Fantilli isn't there, maybe I won't go. So that's
Calder
tough.
first.
Yeah. And I think this came out a little bit after we recorded last week, where we had mentioned that the Flames had made that statement with the leave of absence for Dubé, that they were citing mental health reasons. So they put out a statement after the fact, once he was charged, that they claimed they weren't aware of the involvement with the 2018 World Junior situation. I mean, obviously they knew he was there and he was like a suspect, but they didn't, according to them, they didn't have the information that he was going to be charged. Whether or not that's true, we'll never really know, but they at least address it in some way, which I think is good, because a lot of people were rightfully pretty upset that they tried to besmirch using mental health as a reason to leave when it was something a lot more sinister. You don't want to have players think that or fans think that you can use mental health as an excuse for something a lot worse. So that was good to see that they put something out there. Yeah, so for just some more injury news, Matthias Samuelsson for the Buffalo Sabres, young defender, he's out for the rest of the year. They just cited that as upper body. So that's tough. I mean, there's just like no way that the Sabres do anything really at this point. They're too beaten down, and they don't have enough firepower to push through to the playoffs. So it's going to be another tough year for Buffalo sports fans, unfortunately. I'd be happy to be proven wrong. Go ahead and do it. But it's just not gonna, And we've known, I think, for about maybe at least a month, maybe two, that this wasn't gonna happen this year. So,
starting to see a trend. Blackhawks, Blue Jackets, Sabres, Senators. It's like all these teams that like need that extra jump to get their season going, and they're getting injuries, and they're having all these missteps, or it's unfortunate. I'd like to see some of these teams make a step, especially Columbus and Buffalo. I have Buffalo making the playoffs in my bracket. Columbus would be one of my Eastern Conference teams, so it's unfortunate, but hopefully there's always next year. But it sucks to just keep saying, oh, maybe next year.
Yeah, especially when it's been 12 years.
At some point,
going on
you got to
13.
get it done. Exactly.
Yeah.
At some point, you just got to get it done.
Oh, man, I had them in my bracket too. I thought.
Yeah, I think most of us did. It just seemed like I think they were 1 point out last year, and it seemed like they made so many strong moves in the offseason that the trajectory that they were going on was up. It just hurts. It just hurts to say, as somebody who's grown fond of the Sabres, as a Bills fan, and who's been to a few Sabres games, and sort of connects with those people, and just fans that in general have struggled to watch their favorite teams underperform. Luckily, that didn't happen for Vegas, but it's so strange for me as like someone who I feel like philosophically aligns with the more beaten and battered franchises. I just want them to see them win, but Vegas really never really had that sort of era, and maybe it's to come, but we've already got the spoils of this era, so it's not really going to hurt nearly as bad as it's been hurting for Sabres fans and for Senators fans, and the fans with long droughts.
Yeah, I feel like it's bad enough when you're not doing well and the teams around you are having success, but then to have multiple franchises come in and see more success than you've seen, in a decade is, that's a tough pill to swallow, really. Vegas hitting playoffs in year one, and not only that, but making it to the finals, and even the Kraken, like it only took them 2 years to crack the playoffs. You're looking
And win
here
around
saying, when is it my
against
turn? When is it
the
my
Cup
turn?
champs, like.
There you go, and it's like so you're waiting, like, when is it my turn? When is it my turn? And if you're Owen, it's just like you're hanging on that shred of hope you had when you last saw your team do something.
Yeah.
And it just, the hope dwindles over time, because like every single year it's like, yep, it's gonna happen. And like, I have countless examples of other teams in other leagues where you're seeing the exact same thing.
Yeah, not exclusive to hockey for sure. No doubt about that. There's always going to be battered down franchises.
Speaking about beating down franchises, there was some more news on the Coyotes front. There was a press conference a few days ago, and Gary Bettman was asked if there was any update on the arena situation in Arizona. And he said that Alex Morello, as recently as last week, told me he was certain he was going to get this done, And then he went on to say that I don't make it a practice of contradicting owners unless I have hard facts of the contrary, and I'm both hopeful that and reasonably, and then he paused and said reasonably confident that he's going to do what he says, which doesn't instill the most confidence, but
We haven't gotten anything concrete that, an agreement has been made or that land has officially been purchased. Like, it seems like we're getting close. I've heard talks about like purchasing an area in like North Phoenix that they've been eyeing or whatever, but still nothing at this point. We expected news come January and it never came. Good that at least Bettman addressed it in some capacity rather than like declining to comment. It's good to get at least a little bit of news on that front, but it's gotta be really tough as a Coyotes fan and just somebody who's pulling for them like myself. Just wants to see them stay, and I know it's tough when you get so many people on the internet, especially fans in Quebec City or another area looking for a team that keep saying just move the team already, give up, like it's never gonna work here, because I don't really think that's true. So that's gotta be difficult to hear.
I feel like I'm on. Well, and part of it is selfishly because I like the team, or I like the league at 32 teams. But I'd like to see Arizona move
Barry
to
Bettman won't let that
Utah,
happen.
move to Quebec City, move somewhere else.
They just need a little more time, especially with the players that they've got like already, and the ones that are soon to come. Like they've been unlucky in previous years with how ownership has handled the team and going about getting these arena deals, and I do genuinely believe that Alex Maruello has like the team's best interest at heart. I don't know if he's all like doing everything that he absolutely needs to as far as spending money to get this deal done and keep them in Arizona, but I think for the first time in a little while they're like in a good spot owner wise, despite not having the deal done right now. It's kind of like what happened with the two Atlanta franchises, more specifically the Thrashers, I guess, and that it wasn't just that the team was bad and that they didn't play well, so no fans showed up. Like, fans were generally pretty interested in the Thrashers, but it was like the ownership group not handling them well. There's whole documentaries on what happened with the Thrashers if you're interested in looking, but that just seems to be the downfall for a lot of these franchises, is that they get owners that aren't serious enough about it. They have other interests that take them away from the NHL team, and then things slip. So I don't think.
Well, I think a big question is, do you think that the team has rooted itself enough in the area where there is where they have a big enough fan base, where the city or the state is behind them? And I've seen this so many times in other places where it's like the city starts to give up on the team, or there's just never that connection established. Like, you look at some of these new expansion teams, so like Seattle, Vegas, right away, the cities are behind that team from day one. The turnouts are amazing, and you just have these, diehard fans like immediately. And then you watch teams in other leagues, for example, like the San Diego Chargers. They just struggled with that location, and the city never really bought into the team at any point. And they even did have some success, now given they didn't win a Super Bowl where all of a sudden people started to jump on the bandwagon. But I mean, they were making playoffs, they were doing really well, and just the city was never interested. And the city from a government perspective was never interested, and the city from the individual citizens wasn't interested. And I'm kind of starting to see that it just doesn't seem like there is that deep tie into Arizona, where there's other cities that I feel like if you moved that team, then they would immediately jump on board. So I mean, that's kind of my thought process.
I think Phoenix is a hockey town. I feel like there are like some hardcore fans there. I think the problem is just strictly ownership and how they've kind of botched the whole situation. So I mean, moving it could help because you'd probably get new ownership, but I think the fans there would support the team. It's just tough with the current ownership and the arena situation and everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. I do think that there are loyal fans, especially still going out to these games after years of not being very good. This year they've been okay. They're not in a wild card spot or anything right now, but they were looking like a potential playoff spot for a while, or a playoff team, and that's still not out of the realm of possibility. But that does go a long ways. Not having a ton of on ice success, and the one year of note recently where they did make the playoffs was in the bubble where no player or no fans were able to attend. So that doesn't help in any way. So it's tough. But I do think fans there are real and passionate. Yeah, I'm probably a little bit more in tune with some of the, because I get like random fan bases on my Twitter. Like I'll just see like tweets from certain fan bases for whatever reason, just liking other hockey media. So I feel like I get a little bit more of that side of the real people who are fans of the team. But not for us to decide, and we'll see how things go. Hopefully in a couple of months if we get more info on that. So we've got a couple of trades that have happened recently. We already mentioned the Lindholm trade. So he goes to Vancouver for a pretty hefty return for Calgary. They pick up Andrei Kuzmenko, who's still pretty young. A couple of defensemen, I believe. They were both defensemen, Yanni Yermo and Hunter Bruskowicz. I don't know if I nailed that, but there's actually a bit of hype around him. Their 2024 first-round pick from Vancouver and a conditional fourth in 2024 as well, with conditions about making the conference finals and what have you. So I thought it was a pretty good deal for both sides. I don't know if you guys had any strong takes. It's tough at the beginning when we don't really know how these prospects are going to do. But overall, your gut reactions to the trade?
It was a lot to give up, but I think Vancouver's in win now mode, so they're buying in, and I mean, I think it's the right move. I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess don't wait till trade deadline if you don't have to. If you have your price and you know what you want and you're willing to pay it, then just go out and get it. And I mean, they're still playing great. This is like we talked about earlier in the year. Like, oh, they're just getting lucky and it's not going to last. And it's lasted over 50 games now. They're still first in the league. So I mean, get your players and go for the cup.
Yeah, I bet you even Vancouver was not saying to themselves at the beginning of this year, we're going to be looking for a trade because we're now in win now mode, later in the season. But I'm in agreement there. I mean, if that's your guy, go for him. And I think that kind of follows the Vegas mentality of, don't be afraid, be aggressive. And I think that's, for the most part, Vegas has done well by that, to be aggressive and to go after the guys that you think are really going to help your team and not be afraid to give something decent back in return. Maybe this piece makes them one step closer to getting that cup. We'll see how he meshes with the rest of the team. Now that we're starting to play hockey outside of the All-Star break. I think it's a good move for both teams in what they're trying to get accomplished and what their immediate goal is.
Yeah, and as a Vegas fan, I feel like I'm not I'm generally not happy about the trade because I think it worked for both teams and what they're looking for. So you don't really want to see either of those teams improve. Obviously, Calgary's not really at the forefront right now. Vancouver is. We've got to pass them. Well, we don't have to, but we'd like to pass them in the Pacific and in the West. So, it's pretty rare for Vancouver to be in this win now mode. So I think fans were probably pretty happy that the management finally did what it feels like fans have wanted them to do for a while and get aggressive, especially when they're riding hot. Which again hasn't happened very very recently. So probably good on them. We'll see how the rest of the regular season shakes out. And then
I think this is just gonna make I think this even helps make the case that the Pacific playoffs are going to be a little bit better this year. I mean, as a Vegas fan, it'll be interesting with the Oilers, especially with their success as of late. We kind of thought, okay, maybe Oilers have already cooled off from last season based off of how they started, but now they're on this streak. Vancouver's really deadly right now, and then even though the Kings have really slowed down, I think you can't ever really count them out either. So it'll be interesting. I know that if Vegas and Vancouver meet in the playoffs, that should definitely be a really exciting series to watch. But even though it hurts as a Vegas fan because it's okay, I want a free ride as far as I can make it to the playoffs.
Yeah,
it should add some exciting hockey, I think, to the Pacific Division that we haven't seen in a little while. Probably the closest thing would be that Oilers series from last year with Vegas. But it's nice to maybe see some rivalry start to form again in the division that I feel like we haven't had in a while, or at least a new powerhouse in the Canucks.
Yeah,
it seems like the West is the better conference this year, which it's been a while since you could say that. But the East is kind of already in place as far as playoffs go. I mean, you can argue a few, but the West, there's some scary teams. So I'm hoping that the West beats each other up, and then whoever comes out of the East, the Bruins, hopefully, can win in the finals. But I also heard that the Bruins were part of the talks with Lindholm, but they wanted to get term. So that was. I mean, I also don't know what we would have paid. We don't have the prospects that Calgary does or the draft picks. We couldn't have probably paid that much anyway. But we can't go all in again. We did that last year. So if we're trading, we're gonna trade kind of like we did with the other Lindholm and get a contract with the trade.
The other Lindholm, yeah, you collect them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's team chemistry. If you get both of them, it increases.
Yeah, you get the bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. What was I was gonna mention something about? Speaking of the Kings, I forgot to put this in here, but they did just fire their coach, Todd McClellan, after what's been a pretty abysmal streak. I think they're pretty, I don't know what their last 10 looked like, but I think they maybe only had a couple of wins. So he's finally gone. He's been one of the longer tenured coaches. I think there's only 3 or 4 left that have been there for a considerable time, since 2019, I want to say. Sheldon Keefe, DJ Smith was one of them for a while. Oh, and he just got hired as assistant also. And then
John
Cooper and Sullivan, right? Or Sullivan, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyways, he's out, and I think it was Jim Hiller is the interim head coach as of right now. I assume he was with the Reign, but I don't know for sure. Or maybe he was just an assistant with the LA Kings. I'd have to look at that. So I think Kings fans have been wanting that for the last couple of weeks after the way that they've been performing. So, again, another tough blow for Vegas fans who wanted the Kings to stay the course and keep spiraling downward. That's going to make things even tighter, as we already mentioned. So, I don't know anything about the new head coach, so I can't really comment on that.
Yeah, I'm looking at their schedule. They were 3 wins in their last 17 games, which is terrible. In their last 10, they were 3-5-2, which is bottom of the Pacific. Like that's the worst last 10 games in the Pacific. And
With
we're
the
talking
Ducks
about
and the
playing
Sharks.
with teams like the Ducks, the Sharks, and even the Flames, who've been struggling this year.
Yeah.
And then, like we said, the Oilers are red hot right now. The Canucks have continued to stay playing very well. And then Vegas is now getting we're starting to get all of our players back now on the other side of the All-Star break. So, the Kings really need to figure out what they're going to do if they're trying to make a push at the end of this year, because otherwise, well, they're already looking at a wild card spot.
Yeah. Oh, so it was
So
it was the Kings
those are
also
hard to
who hired DJ Smith as an assistant coach. So there we go. That's why I was reminded. So yeah. He joins Hiller's group.
The coaching changes have worked for a lot of teams, so
Yeah.
maybe that's part of their mentality. Like, look around the league, look, all these coaching changes have turned teams around. So they're like, why not us? Maybe it'll get us in the playoffs or keep us in the wild card spot.
Yeah, you got to do something, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
clearly things were not working. I know people have been talking about Pierre-Luc Dubois' effort this year and his performance with how much he's getting paid, and after getting traded to another team, like he hasn't shown up nearly enough, and he cited that he knew that he wasn't where he was at, but that there's a certain adjustment period for joining a new team. I think that time's over, at this stage. So we'll see how he does for the rest of the way with the new hire. But yeah, if they're gonna make playoffs or do anything in them, they're gonna need him to seriously turn things up a notch.
And when you get traded as much as he has as a player, you have to start thinking that there might be something like about the player. And I mean,
Yeah.
people talk about like how he just takes nights off and like doesn't give it his all every game. But I mean, you can't be 100% for all 82 games, like play a perfect game. But like, there's some nights where he's like, not really feeling it tonight. Just like doesn't put in the effort.
Yeah, and it's like you start getting to that thing where it's like, okay, I see the potential in this player as far as the skill that they have on the ice. So if I
He's
can
so good
just,
some nights.
yeah, right. So it's like if I can just get him and find a way to get him motivated and follow my systems or whatever, maybe I can turn him into a superstar again. It's like, how many teams are going to try that before he's not worth it anymore? And we'll see if he turns it around, and if that's the case, if the Kings are like, oh crap, try to move him somehow, if he doesn't work out. But yeah, more to come. In some oh, you know what? Let me, before I say that, the other trade, which I was gonna talk about earlier, but we brought something else up. So Sean Monahan goes to Winnipeg from the Canadiens. They get a 2024 first as well, and a conditional third in 2027, with the condition being Winnipeg wins the Stanley Cup. So we'll see about that. But pretty impressive by Kent Hughes and the Montreal Canadiens to be able to get 2 first-round picks for Monahan. They took a first-rounder from Calgary to pick him up, so to take his contract, and then this 1 year they were able to trade him for another first-rounder, with his performance this year with the Canadiens. So Habs fans are very happy about that. Obviously, Dean's not as happy, I'm sure, for the Canadiens, but still not a threat at this stage.
Right.
We can,
Yeah, I mean, if you're
we
a
can go for a
Winnipeg
while.
fan, you're probably happy too. I mean, you didn't get Lindholm, but you got another good center depth piece in Monahan that can help you. And again, they're also a team that's in win now mode, looking to win the Stanley Cups. So getting more center depth is always a good thing to have.
No doubt about that. I mean, that's like the cornerstone for a lot of these successful franchises and cup champions. So, as somebody who's pushing for Winnipeg, not as much as Vegas, but still pushing for them to do well. I was excited about it.
Yeah, but I think it's just another example of these teams loading up, getting ready for playoffs. As much star power, as much firepower as you can on your team, and that's just another team that's becoming a powerhouse in the Western Conference that Vegas has to get through if they want to go back to back.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes. I'm really looking forward to, I think, the Western Conference, like you said. I think it'll be really fun this year.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good matchups that could come, especially, it's like last year, okay, Winnipeg didn't stand a chance against Vegas. This year, it's like, okay, I feel like they could really put up a fight. The Canucks, weren't even in the conversation, and now here they are. So I think we're just adding – there's just more teams that I think can actually have a chance of being the Western Conference's representative in the Stanley Cup Finals, more so than last year, where I think there was really only a couple that where it was like actually have a chance.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's always gonna make it entertaining. So, I freaking love the playoffs. We're still a little bit out. We still got the trade deadline and everything, but looking forward to it. Vegas also lost a piece off waivers. They had to waive Braden Pachal, or I can never remember how to pronounce
Pahal,
it.
I think. I believe it's Pahal.
Yeah, that's what it is. We've already done this whole song and dance before. He's now with the Calgary Flames. I think he'll probably be playing with the Flames because otherwise they probably have to waive him. And, yeah, they've had a lot of injuries and trying things out with their prospects this year. So they'll probably be having him in their top 6 with the Flames. Tough for Vegas. We normally don't deal with that too often where we lose guys on waivers. Normally we're the ones taking them from other teams. We already did that once this year. So I kind of thought that he would be. I mean, I read that Sinbin article that you sent in the group chat about which defenders with this sort of logjam might be the ones to go. And yeah, Sinbin did think that Pahal would be the one on the chopping block first, and unfortunately he got claimed. It happens, and maybe they'll able to claim him back later, but I kind of doubt it with Calgary's trajectory. So
yeah, I feel like every year there's something new that Vegas deals with. Whether it was goalie injuries one year, just trying to find more bodies to fill spots the year that they missed the playoffs. But this year, yeah, it's really the fact that there was 11 defensemen and there was only so many spots on the roster. I'm curious to see how everything pans out because Tobias Bjornfot was acquired off of waivers.
Yeah.
And I'm not really sure what his role is going to be. They're saying that, again, it's possible that he was just, we need somebody to fill the spot and you're a guy who's available to play.
That's probably what it was.
Or is it something where they actually saw, probably was the case. Or is it like that they actually saw something in this guy and they think he's maybe better than like Pahal, for example. But it's tough because we don't really know what the timeline is on Theodore. But it's like he's going to be coming back, and you have Pietrangelo, and you have McNabb, and you have White Cloud, and you have Haig. And then Martinez, that's going to be another interesting one. We'll see what happens there because I could always see him being a trade piece for something else at the deadline because I think you want to move off of that cap hit anyway. He's being paid just over $5 million a year, and he's getting up there in age. I think he's like 35 or 36. But again, it's just another tough spot for Vegas. They have a lot of young guys. Caden Korzak's starting to really come into his own, I think, for Vegas. And we'll have to figure out what happens to him because when Shea Theodore comes back, then he's another guy who's going to get booted down, or he'll be the seventh man for them. But time will tell. We'll see how this plays out. But Pahal ends up being the odd man out.
Yeah, tough to see him go. And he played in the playoffs last year too, so he's a Stanley Cup champion. So bummer, but we move on. Right, Dean?
Name on the cup. You have to just
I
play.
I think he does have his name on the cup.
I think his name is on the cup.
There's like a
If you
regular.
read the back of our jerseys,
regular-
it says always advance, never retreat, right? So it's got to keep moving forward.
I forget what it is, like regular season minimum games, and then I don't know how playoffs counts towards it. But.
Yeah, I never remember the rules. I think they can select, a certain number of players. Anyway, like I think they can choose to put someone else on there, even if they don't necessarily meet the criteria. Maybe not. I don't know.
After regular
he has
season,
only played-
for one game in the finals.
One game in the final. Yeah, I don't know if he played in the finals.
I'm trying to see if I can find his playoff metrics, but he only played in 17 of the 50 games this year for Vegas.
Okay.
So it's like two out of every 5. So, but I mean, again, it's been a carousel on defense for for Vegas.
Yeah.
Well, let me see if he played one playoff game.
Was it in the finals?
I don't think it was. I think it was
It
in the
must have
Winnipeg
been, I think.
series.
What's his first name?
Braden,
Braden.
not Brendan, and not Brad, not Brandon.
Career playoffs. Load from
Um,
he played
wait.
He played Winnipeg. He played.
yeah.
His
That's
name
right.
is on the cup.
doesn't say
This
which
article's
game.
from one day ago because they talk about it in the waiver claim.
Yeah, I thought his name was on the cup. I thought I remembered seeing that. I know he lifted it because he was there.
The article says that was just part of the appeal for the Calgary Flames.
Yeah,
There you go.
there we go.
Big, strong, right shot defensive defenseman who increases our team's physicality and will be an asset to our penalty kill.
You hate to lose
He has
assets. for
one.
nothing.
He had one goal this year, and that was his first goal in the NHL.
Nice.
At least he got it with Vegas.
Yep. So he's got a cup with Vegas. He's got a goal with Vegas.
That's
now
all
he's
you
off
need.
to Flames.
Yeah. So we touched on this before. Dean mentioned it about potentially having Corey Perry file a grievance against the Blackhawks for wrongful termination. So it sounds like that's going to be the case, and it was brought up at the time that we initially brought that up about the 60-day deadline. Apparently that was extended, so he was able to file because he was initially terminated in November, but looks like they're still going through with it. So I guess
Pending but not filed as of now.
not filed. Okay, pending. Thank you for the update there. So
And I'm curious to
we'll
see
if
if
that goes through.
we find out what happens. Are we going to ever find out what happened? Are we going to get more information now that they're
Probably
filing
not.
this grievance?
I would doubt
Probably
it.
not, but
But
I'm
yeah, I
still
mentioned-
curious. I'm just genuinely curious what happened.
Yeah. Well, I said before that the Players Association would probably want to file for this just to not allow for a precedent to be set.
Yeah.
But this says Frank Saravelli tweeted saying that Perry feels they did not have proper grounds to terminate his contract. So I don't know how much of it's his decision, how much is the NHLPA, again, I said before the NHLPA has never filed without the player being on board, so
Yeah.
he must have been somewhat on board. But again, now we'll just wait and see what happens because again, they now have 60 days to file it, or if it's pending or whatever. So more time to wait.
Yeah. So a quick little news item there, along with Puljujärvi, we had reported that he had signed with the AHL affiliate with the Penguins, and he was playing a little bit there. He's now signed after initially being on a PTO. He signed a 2x800K deal with the Pittsburgh Penguins. So he's finally gonna be playing in the league again. We'll see how he does. His underlying numbers have not been great. He has the ability to create plays, but his scoring touch, his finishing ability has not really been there for most of his career, which is why he's struggled So this is probably last hurrah. Get a couple of years, prove what you can do. You're still, on the younger side, so we'll see if he really slots in well with a Pittsburgh team kind of fluctuating on their trajectory right now. If they're gonna make it or not. I think most of us were thinking that they weren't gonna get it done. So we'll see where that's headed. Let's see. So Kuznetsov was recently announced that he's joining the Players Assistance Program. It wasn't cited the reason. So that's another, star player. Maybe not a star as much now. Like Line A just also joined the Players Assistance Program. So it's good that these big players are, using these avenues to better themselves and get help. It just sucks that, so many players are dealing with these sorts of issues where they need to, But obviously happy for these players recognizing that they need help, whatever it is, and that they're able to get it. It's not as feasible for some folks in other lines of work to be able to afford to do that better yourself in whatever way you need. So good for
And
the
it seems it
players.
helps remove the stigma around mental health, and we've been
Absolutely,
seeing
yeah.
these a lot, which could be seen as a good thing. Like you wouldn't have seen this 10 years ago in the league, and all of these happening. If it happened, or if it didn't happen, like if they didn't go into the assistant program, it's not like they weren't having issues. It's just now they're less afraid to be public about it and like actually get the help they need, which is good.
Yeah. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but somebody was asking McKinnon like after the festivities with the All-Star game, how he was feeling about going back into the regular season and how he had, how he felt during this like break time, and he was like, you never really off of the the mindset. Like he's still very conscientious about what he's eating. He said, you still look in the mirror and you like kind of feel like you're fat or whatever, which it's like, obviously McKinnon is not fat or anything, but it's like, yeah, there's a lot of pressure on these guys, even after, winning the Stanley Cup a couple of years ago. Like there's that pressure to perform, to be your absolute best as far as like a human and as an athlete, as far as your body and how you perform mentally. So it's good to hear more players, openly speaking about this stuff. So I think a positive change for the NHL, which we don't get to say that often, unfortunately. So we did have the London, Ontario conference today. I don't believe either of you guys tuned in. I was able to tune in, and luckily for you guys, it wasn't very informative, which was also frustrating, but we kind of, expected that. So we didn't really get a lot of answers. They pretty much used the line that because the investigation is ongoing, and now that we're in the legal process, they can't divulge specific details, which they use that statement like pretty broadly. They use that to not answer a lot of questions, which was difficult. It was like a 45-minute or so conference, but we got a couple of items. It was Michael McLeod that had an additional count for being a party to the offense. So basically, just assisting in the the sexual assault, whatever. We didn't get any details about what actually happened. I don't think anyone is really looking for that. But as far as other details, like how it happened, where it took so long for the process to to get this far. We're 6 years in since the initial incident, and wasn't really any direct statements about that or about why things were reopened in 2022. We didn't get any information on that. It's like, even was there new evidence brought up? Like, they were just pretty simple questions that they weren't able to answer. So I don't know what you guys expected. I didn't really expect a whole lot, but I think I was still pretty underwhelmed and a little frustrated with the whole process.
I mean, kind of frustrating, but at the same time, it's an ongoing investigation, so like, makes sense that there's not much they can say at this time. I guess it'll be more frustrating if after this case is finished, they still don't. I mean, I guess you also want to respect like the victim's privacy and things like that. So from that side of things, it makes sense as well. But yeah, not knowing why it's been delayed so long, and I mean, with the way the court works, they're talking about it happening in like maybe late 2025 or early 2026. So
Yeah, that's a time frame right now.
everyone just wants like a resolution as soon as possible.
Yeah. So they did mention, like when people ask certain questions, that they understand why why media is asking those questions, and that they'd like to provide those answers, but they can't right now. And they did mention on a couple of those that answers will be provided once rulings have been made and what have you. So I'm sure eventually we'll get some more information, but it's a long way down the road at this stage. So I'm sure a lot of people were just like, what's the point of holding the conference if they really can't provide much information? I think we got a couple of things, but yeah, mostly it was not really anything that we didn't already know about.
We did find out that teams affected by like losing players to this are going to get some cap relief. I don't know. You put this on here. I don't know what exactly that entails, or if we know
that was
yet.
not part of the conference, but that I just saw today a little bit before I hopped on. So I don't know if it's been divulged, like what they're gonna do specifically, but it sounds like those cap hits will just be off the books more or less. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like there's got to be some kind of like not LTIR, but a similar place where you can put that cap hit, where it just goes to like extenuating circumstances. Like there's just like this bucket where you can put that, because like obviously these players, like nobody's been proved, like they've all been charged, but no one's been proven guilty yet. So it's like you still are paying that contract. So it's like these players do have the right to the money. So you still got to pay the contract, but at the same time, they're not playing for you. So why are they a cap hit? So it's kind of going to be one of those scenarios where I think they're still going to pay out the full contract, but it's not going to affect you at all. And it's just going to go into some weird bucket that we're going to see on cap friendly when we go on in 6 months, where it's essentially going to be like an IR scenario.
Yeah.
I wonder who has the most years left on their contract. Like, I don't even know, because like obviously
Maybe Carter
if someone's guilty, then I assume you can't pay them anymore. That's got to be, if Corey Perry's contract can get terminated. I'm sure if you're guilty of sexual assault, your contract can get terminated.
Yeah, I think so.
Like Carter Hart
Cal
only
Chenyak's contract got terminated at the beginning of the year.
Carter Hart's on his last year, so.
Oh, he is, okay. I'm not sure. So I think it's probably the right, I think it's the right call. The teams, whether or not they were aware of that allegation specifically for their players or not, doesn't really matter. I think some people were comparing the cap relief compared to like other situations where teams didn't benefit from cap relief, but I don't think that they really applied. I was trying to remember the specific situation that I saw, and now I can't remember what some people were arguing about, but I think at least for this situation it does make sense, because they can't really play right now while the investigation's going on, and they can't terminate them because they still don't know what the outcome of the game, or sorry, not game, trial is going to be. So.
Looks like they're
cap
this is
friendly
all
now.
the last year for all of them.
Oh,
on
really?
Contracts. Oh.
Cap friendly has it listed as they're listed as non-roster, so they are listed as they're already separated from the active roster and not included in like an injury reserve or a LTIR bucket.
Got it.
But yeah, McLeod is 1.4 this year. Then he's a restricted free agent. Cal Foot is 800 this year, and then restricted free agent. And then you said that Carter Hart was on the last year of his deal, and then who's the other player?
Dylan Dubé's on his last year, and then Formanton's in the AHL.
Yeah.
He's in the
So
Swiss
not
League.
a huge concern for these teams because it's not like they have a player who signed for an additional 5 years. So I guess that benefits the teams that it's not like we have this long drawn out thing that we're gonna have to figure out. It's like they'll have this resolved contract wise.
Right.
At the end of this year, they're essentially just paying out the rest of this year. It's not going to affect the cap, and then we just move forward.
Yep.
Yeah, that is a positive.
The interesting thing will be this is going to be drawn out for a really long time, like you said. Like they're talking 2025, 2026. So these players are pretty much like this is probably it for them. But let's say, for instance, that they do get they are proven innocent. Then I'm curious how that goes on if a team would even be interested in signing the player, but that's just playing a game of what ifs. But I guess we'll see where everything goes. Because a lot of these guys are still young, so even if the case were to go a couple years, like they still would have time to play if they were indeed innocent and not.
Yeah, it'll be interesting from a PR point of view too. If they are innocent, if teams are still willing to claim them, because even with that, they still get backlash. The teams, I'm sure.
Yeah, you don't want to be caught up in that, but at the same time, it's like if the court system did say that you were innocent, then
yeah. I think Brandon and I were talking about this before we started recording, but in Canada, I think they looked at data from 2021, 22. I think it was like 31% of sexual assault cases that went to court, they were proven guilty, which is not great.
Yeah.
So I don't know if in this case it's like an all or nothing, or if you're going off the statistics, if a third of them are going to be guilty. But again, we're all speculating. We're not going to know for years. So
yeah.
Yep.
So that's the update on that situation. I did also see that any of the other players not already mentioned in the that have faced charges but on that team are not going to be eligible to play in international play. Like Hockey Canada announced this. So like Cale Makar and I think there was another player currently on an NHL roster that won't be eligible to play at the Four Nations face-off.
just because they were on that team,
At least as of right now, yeah.
it doesn't seem fair. I mean, like Cale Makar has said he has nothing to do with it. Like he wasn't there, and
yeah, he's been pretty outspoken about that he wasn't involved in any capacity.
Yeah.
Let me see I want to see where they tweeted about it.
And the other interesting piece of this too, depending on when the trials actually take place, is we'll see if some of these other players on the team get subpoenaed to appear in court to be, whether it's essentially witnesses, whether they're going to have to testify in any way, and then if that could impact their possible play elsewhere too. Depending on when that happens, this is going to happen in the middle of an NHL season where a player is going to have to take a leave of absence in order to participate in this trial. And then you would hope that wouldn't come, into a scenario where it's like, okay, you're affecting other players' chances at, playoffs or more meaningful games. but at the same time, like this trial is really important to make sure that you get everything right. So we'll see how it plays out.
Yep.
Just wanted to see who the other player was, but yeah, the Hockey Canada statement, they said all players on the 2018 National Junior Team remain suspended by Hockey Canada and are ineligible to play, coach, officiate, or volunteer with Hockey Canada sanctioned programs. So unless
So you think that's just for the time being, or do you think? Like,
yeah, it's until they get more information, I guess, or until due process.
Because that makes it sound like that makes it sound like they're essentially like charging all of the players right now, and it's like they're making it seem like any of these players on this roster can still be guilty, and not just the 5 that we've called and charged with the count of sexual assault. So I feel like that's a little bit unfair to the rest of those players, because I feel like if like maybe they're expecting to learn more during the trial. Rob Thomas, did you say?
Yeah, Robert Thomas was the other player mentioned that wouldn't be available at the Worlds or potentially at the Olympics too. So yeah, sorry, I got this wrong. NHL's Four Nations face-off next is league rules, so they can play.
So they can play in the Four Nations, but they can't play in the Olympics.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not.
Which just feels like a blanket statement to me. It's just like whether you were possibly involved or not, you're just not eligible.
Yeah, that's tough.
Well, at least Cale Makar is young. He can play in 2030.
Yeah. There we go. He'll still be good then.
He'll be in his prime.
Yeah. Can you believe he's not in his prime right now? That's unbelievable. Really. As speaking of in the future, Wednesday on TNT, the location for the 2025 Winter Classic was going to be announced. I think a lot of people are thinking it's going to be something to do with Chicago. They'll be involved in some way because of Battered. They always do this with these like young stars.
It's always Chicago.
Yeah, and it's always Chicago. I mean, they're involved in so many of these Winter Classic games, so it's probably a safe bet. I'm hoping for something.
Duly noted.
Something new.
I'm holding on to the hope for duly noted.
Yeah. Yeah, probably not.
Probably not this year, but hopefully in the next couple of years, that'd be awesome to see them in it again and get hopefully redemption from this horrible game this year.
Yeah, right. Maybe they get Columbus involved in some way, like some of the teams that still haven't played in outdoors. Florida,
I'm gonna watch Blackhawks Columbus Winter Classic.
I know, that's why I'm like, they'd probably, if they were gonna do Columbus, it would probably be Detroit and Columbus, maybe. Or maybe I heard rumors about like Ohio State. I don't know if they're capable of doing that at this time, hosting a Winter Classic game. But again, we'll know more on Wednesday, and by the time this episode is out, we'll know.
Edmonton, Chicago would be cool.
Yeah, somebody did mention that. Like get the two Connors playing. It would just be kind of strange because they hardly ever really do that, where like the two teams playing are not that geographically close. Like Vegas and Seattle was still a little far, but like normally it's like relatively close, not always, but yeah.
Yeah, because you want to fill it with both fans.
Yeah. You want it to. You want to be able to get both fan bases there and interested by the jerseys and whatever. So.
And Arizona hasn't either. I don't know if you said Columbus and Florida.
Yeah, they haven't either. That's the third team.
So it's those three teams haven't, and 18 teams have showed up more than once.
And that's just for playing in an outdoor game. Like there's more that have never played in a Winter Classic. But just outdoors in general. So yeah, a lot of I think what we said 16 teams have played in a Winter Classic. So that's still a lot of teams Team's not there. So yeah, we'll know more there. I'm again not gonna be surprised if it's Chicago. I don't really want it to be Chicago, although kind of fun just for Bedard. We'll see what jersey choices they do, but we're well down the road. That's well down the road.
Yeah, 16 teams.
Yeah, okay.
And two of those are the expansion teams, you know.
That's crazy.
So I know that there's a lot of franchises out there that are dying to get their team in the Classic.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like maybe with like someone also mentioned doing, Florida, like Panthers versus Lightning. That seems more of like a stadium series sort of matchup than a Winter Classic to me. Like they kind of have different feels. So I'm not super surprised by those numbers as far as the Winter Classic. Like they like to make it a little bit more, I don't know, regal, I guess, or historic in a way. That the stadium series hasn't exactly had that same mentality. And then they've had those other one-off games like the Heritage Classic. They do those, and then they had the Lake Tahoe games, which was just like a weird little thing that they did to get people to watch the game when everything in the world was weird. But yeah, we'll see. Who knows? I'd be rooting for Columbus. It'd be fun. Get a new potential Columbus jersey, although, the whole Fanatics thing, I don't want to jump ahead of myself. Speaking of...
Yeah, I think I was going to say I like Columbus jerseys, so I would definitely look forward to what they do with the Winter Classic. But yeah, I mean, who knows with this Fanatics deal, what's going on? I was just re-earthing that myself the other day, going through the some videos of people's thoughts on it, and yeah, it's scary. I'm glad I already have the Vegas jerseys that I have, and hopefully Fanatics figures themselves out, and we can all enjoy hockey jerseys moving forward.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of hockey jerseys and enjoyment of them, so I've completed my Reverse Retro 2.0, which is the set from last year collection. I've got all 32. I actually wrapped up with Anaheim, which is the first one alphabetically, but that one happened to be the last one because I never really had a good deal, but I ended up getting a good deal on a Zegras from eBay. So I'm pretty close to completing the full set for both years. I only need 4 more from the 2020-2021 season where they initially aired or premiered or whatever. Those ones are going to be tough to get. Actually, I think I have one of them lined up, but I'm going to wait a little bit so I can get, paid because it's not cheap to buy all these things. I try to not buy too many all at once. Yeah. So I was excited about that. I shared it with the Hockey Jersey subreddit in the Discord, and they were all pretty happy with me. And like, yeah, it's a pretty cool feat. So I could throw up some photos of the full collection that I took, but I was glad that I was able to get it done, and that I bought some of the ones that I was pretty sure were gonna be hard to find and sell out when I did. Like, I know I was pretty sure that the Panthers one and the Capitals one and the Bruins ones were gonna be some of the more popular ones. So luckily I jumped on those when they were still available, because
awesome.
Yeah, it's tough to have to go to the resale market for those.
So you said you have two racks now, right?
Yeah, I've got another one in another bedroom.
So what we're seeing is not all the jerseys right
These
now,
are
right?
the ones behind me are just the reverse retros that I have in my collection.
Okay.
Including the All-Star.
And that's 1.0 and 2.0?
Yeah, both of them, yeah. Yeah, no. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the other interesting thing that I heard when I was looking into everything about Fanatics, is that even if the deal had stayed with Adidas, that there was no plan for a third reverse retro set. And then, who knows what Fanatics does, but that was something that I guess I wasn't like, I mean, at a certain point, like, what are we going to do? Just keep coming up with new jerseys designs that never actually existed for some of these teams. But yeah, I'm curious to see what they do next for the league. Because I mean, we will still have cool jerseys with the Winter Classic, with the Stadium Series, but with these no reverse retros on the horizon, what's the plan? Is they're going to do something else special, or we're just going to have a hiatus?
Well,
From
usually
jerseys
with,
beyond
with the new manufacturers, there's like
true.
rebranding that happens. Maybe not in the
Oh
first
yeah,
year,
that was the other thing they talked
but
about too.
yeah, like there are definitely teams that are fan bases that have scrambled for some of their teams to get or clambered is what I meant, not scrambled, to get a redesign, like the Capitals and like the Ducks and Columbus, to extent LA as well. Like just some of these looks that have been sort of, we're tired of them, or we never really were in love with them when they first came out, and now it's like it feels like they've run their course. So that might be
Yep.
a positive come next year. But yeah, I don't know. I guess, do you guys have any other teams that you think deserve like a refresh that I didn't already mention?
Not really.
Yeah, not that I can think of. Like, I feel like I'm generally actually happy with most of the looks in the league, and I feel like there's a lot of differentiation, and we get a lot of colors involved. I know you're hoping for it's purple, right? That you want to see more of in the league,
I'd love to see some more purple, definitely.
more purple. I
Detroit
don't know. I'm
have a purple octopus
so I'm
jersey.
pretty happy.
Oh, that would be cool. I'd actually,
Detroit
But I think
like
generally,
a Detroit jersey then. Generally, I don't really like any Detroit jerseys because they're so just bland, and I don't like red to begin with that much. So
How dare you?
sorry, Dean.
I think we're just so spoiled with the amount of jerseys that have come out recently. That I mean, it's going to be curious I'm going to be curious if we really do see a slowdown when it comes to, like, again, we had reverse retro, we had the second reverse retro. Like for me, like Winter Classic with Vegas in it. But all of a sudden, it's like, okay, we might get some of these new rebrands, but then like we're used to, okay, what's next? What's the next jersey? What are we going to see our players wear for 3-4 games? So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's fun. We'll know more soon. I think that's all I got. Dean threw this in there, which I did see. The Bertuzzi did donate his hair. He cut it off for kids with cancer, so that was pretty. That's
That's
nice.
a nice story. We'll just throw it in here at the
Yeah.
end.
Get away from some of the sadness we've just been talking about with the World
And on a
Juniors.
happy note,
and
yeah.
With the
It's donated to
Fanatics.
Wigs for Kids, which is for kids with cancer, any kids that like need wigs for whatever reason. So
Good on you,
Good
Bert.
for- yep. I think it's like he's done it before too. I think so.
That's nice.
I've always respected the people that just grow their hair out super long, chop it off to donate, and just repeat. Like, I mean, hey, you can grow hair. Why not just like give it to people who need it?
Yeah. Yeah. Zane from our show has grown really really long hair before. When he was in high school, he had, his hair was like down to his like lower back for like most of the time that I knew him. So, and then when he went to college, he chopped it all off pretty much. I don't know if he donated it or not. I'll say that he did and give him the free brownie points. Yeah. So I just threw it in the trash. But that's all. I think that's all we got for this installment, episode 28. We made it. The 27 rule didn't come true this time.
Oh yeah.
Thankful for that. So that's all we got for now. We'll catch you on the next one.
Yeah.
See ya.
Perfect. Welcome to Dean at night. It's just like regular Dean, except the lights are off. There's no difference.